All right, priority standards. This is the second part of level 1. So we're going to start to learn about the relationships that exist with these different types of angles that we talked about in the first level 1 vocabulary video. All right, you should have this in your notes, maybe from your teacher if you've already been to class, but just in case you haven't, these are the relationships that we're going to use when we see either corresponding angles or alternate interior angles or alternate exterior angles, or consecutive interior angles. So what we need to do is we need to see what's true about them when lines are parallel. That's what these little arrow flags on the lines tell us. That might also look like just a little arrow like this in a picture. And so when lines are parallel, corresponding angles, that would be like angle 7 and angle 2, same side of the transversal, one exterior, one interior, they are always congruent, which means they're just equal to each other. So if this angle was 130 degrees, then this angle would also be 130 degrees. Alternate interior angles, remember those are the ones that are on alternate sides of the transversal, but both in the interior space, so trapped between these two lines, if we shade it in there. So that would be like angle 8 and angle 3. Those are also congruent, which means they're equal. So if this angle 8 was 50 degrees, then angle 3 would also be 50 degrees. Alternate exterior angles are very similar. They're on alternate sides of the transversal, but they're not in that interior shaded area. So angle 6 and angle 1 are example of those. Those are also congruent or equal because they're just vertical angles with our alternate interiors. So those would have to be the same measures as well because of that vertical angle theorem relationship we know about from previous standards. And then last but not least, the odd ones out are the consecutive interior angles. That would be like angle 8 and angle 2. Same side of the transversal, but both interior. Do you notice how those are 50 and 130? Those are not congruent. They're what we call supplementary because they add up to be 180 degrees. So what you'll do in problems is you'll use those relationships with some given numbers to fill in how large other angles are. So if you look at some examples, these are from page 53 in your notes if you have them done. If I'm looking at angle 7 as being 100 degrees and angle 3 is my goal, the first thing I want to do is figure out what kind they are. So here's my transversal. They're on the same side. This one's interior. This one's exterior. So those are an example of corresponding angles. We just said that corresponding angles are always congruent. So that means I just steal that 100 degrees, and that's going to be the measure for angle 3. Now for these problems, these are each a new scenario. So now this 100 disappears when we move on to number 2. The same thing is true for the practice you're going to do in just a minute. This time they're giving us angle 1 is 120. They're asking us about angle 7 down here at the bottom. Well, those are alternate now because they're separated by the transversal. Neither of them is interior, so these are what we call alternate exterior angles. And we just said alternate exterior angles are also congruent. So that means 120 degrees. Pretty simple. Next up, angle 3 is now 140 degrees, and they want to know about angle 5. So take a look at your transversal. They're still alternate, but this time they're in that space that would be shaded in between our two parallel lines. So that means they're alternate interior angles. But just like alternate exteriors and just like corresponding angles, alternate interiors are congruent. So if angle 3 is 140, so is angle 5. Last but not least, we've got angle 3. Ooh, we're switching it up. Not 140 anymore, but 125. And they're asking us about angle 6. All right, one more time. Let's look at the transversal. They're on the same side, but both interior. We call those our consecutive interior angles. Those are different than all the others. We just wrote down that they were supplementary, and as a reminder, that means that they add together to be 180 degrees. So if I take the 125 and the angle 6, they're going to add together to be 180. Do a quick subtraction, and angle 6 is going to be 55 degrees. Stop this video and go ahead and try your level 1 using the relationships with numbers section. If you need help, come back, rewatch, look for some more examples, but always start by deciding what kind of angles you're given and then double check the relationship. If they're corresponding alternate exterior or alternate interior, they'll be congruent, which just means equal. If they're consecutive interiors, they'll be supplementary, so they add together to be 180 degrees. Finish out that level 1 and then come back for level 2.